Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart,
Good morning, my brothers and sisters, for another edition of Blackbook Mondays. I'm excited today, folks. We got a lot on our plate. You got my Facebook talking about the fact that we wanted to talk about the Blackbook past, present, and future, which we're going to start off the show. But we had a special guest come in here today because a lot of times we talk about our political agenda. And part of the Blackbook, the realization is we will never have black power unless we have both economic might and social justice, which requires a political agenda. And in this political year, we are going to talk about the black agenda. We are going to talk, we have invited all kind of candidates. It does not matter your party affiliation. You can be Republican, Democrat, you can be Libertarian, you can be non-partisan. We want you to come in and talk about the black agenda. We've been fortunate to have a couple people come in before this. And I got a call as we started to put together our mega mixer for the 4th of May. And I got a call from Mr. John Anzalone. Am I saying that right, John?
Anzalone, that's right, Brian.
Yeah.
Anzalone.
Yeah, and he's in here. He's running for Congress for District 4. Yeah. He's a teacher. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself, but he's going to spend the majority of the time talking about the black agenda and his commitment to make sure that we have a seat at the table and a plate to eat on. So, folks, real quick before we get started to John, I want to talk about some calendar of events. The Black Film Festival is going on this month. Folks, hats off to Michelle Boykin, and I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. But Michelle has been doing the Black Film Festival. We need to get out and support her and check out these black films. Mark your calendar for our mega mixer, first Friday, May 4th at Raw Remedies, 203 East Colorado, the place to be. We're inviting 22 of the candidates to come out and to mix with us. This ain't your tie mixer. It's come out to party with a purpose and get to know the young folks and the black folks, to talk about our agendas and to talk about your commitment to give us a plate along with the seat at the table. So mark your calendars. There'll be more following, but please, 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 if you're unhappy about today's environment and all you do is Facebook, if you are unhappy about what's going on and you don't know who's running for district attorney, and you don't know who's running for sheriff, and you don't know what their agendas are, you're part of the problem. We have to be informed voters. We have to reach out to everyone and let them know about our agenda. So, mark those dates. Now, real quick, the Blackbook past, present, and future. Folks, going to be quick, less than 10 minutes, but I want to tell you a little bit about the Blackbook, which is the start of the reason we're here on Blackbook Mondays. In 2012, over 6 years ago, I joined the Black Business Council. And shouts out to Ernest Fountain. Woo-woo! Yep, he gave us some talks about black economics and the need for access to capital for black folks. And during that conversation, it dawned on me, we needed a vehicle to find black-owned businesses. I was tired of hearing people say there's not a lot of good businesses, or, man, our black businesses got their act in order. All these were false statements. They were the miseducation of black America. They were the reason we were what you call in basketball self-check. We have to go out and we have to basically find and support the businesses that are black owned so they can strengthen and they can hire us. So we created that in 2012, and then about 2 years ago we updated it from the Las Vegas Black Book to the Black Book because we wanted to have an international presence. Our whole objective is to become an international app that people look for whatever city they're in to find and support black-owned businesses. Now understand, we're not the only one. They've been out here before me, after me. There's celebrities now doing theirs. I applaud them. As long as we support black-owned businesses, should be the end game, and that should be the reason that we're in the game. From the Black Book, we created the Black Market. The Black Market is our eBay stake. Say www.ourblackdollarsmatter.com. www.ourblackdollarsmatter.com. We got some great folks in there. We got African traditions. Man, this young lady, Miss Shawana, she has a place in Ghana. She flies all the way to Africa and she brings back the real deal, not from China, but the real deal of your home furnishings that you can use that are real African products and services. Raw Remedies, where I hung out last night, 203 East Colorado. You see this nice shirt? I was thinking about wearing my usually independent black voters or my black business equals black power, but I decided to wear this shirt because I bought it at Raw Remedies.
And it is snappy and it looks good on
tight,
you.
That's what I was about to tell you. That Teresa gave you a compliment.
John Shaft.
It
You
looks
know.
good. Yeah.
But you can't find stuff like this, folks. You can't find this at Walmart. You can't find this stuff like this. This is unique, and this is what
And
our
good
people
quality.
bring. It's great quality. So I wanted to wear this shirt so I can tell you I support black-owned business, folks. I buy black. You know what? And I got some neat stuff on because I go and I bought it from Raw Remedies. Bobby, shout out to you. That's
Bobby,
my
thank
buddy.
you, girl. Thank you.
Yep.
It looks great.
Thank you. So, again, since then, from the black market, we created Blackbook Bucks. Blackbook Bucks is the whole, let's really recycle dollars. And it's set up as a strategy that when we support one black business, it reciprocates the other. Right now, I challenge anybody out there to call CSN Insurance. It is a black-owned business. Shout out to Quincy Branch. He is one of the owners of
All right,
CSN
Quincy.
Insurance. The number is 702-399-6200. 702-399-6200. As for Sonia, if you tell her the Black Book sent you, then she will do a overview of your car insurance, your home insurance, and see if she can save you some bucks. If she can save you some bucks, then she saved you some bucks. And in this environment with the increase of insurance, if you're not going out at least yearly and getting a review, then you're basically paying too much. I talked to her and I'm about to change my insurance because it's going to save me quite a bit of money. If you tell her the Black Book sent you and you come there and you're serious about getting a quote, whether you get the quote or not, you will get a Black Book buck worth $5 that you can take to TC's Rib Crib or you can take to Grits and you can use that $5 on your lunch. That's what we call about recycling the black dollar. So again, it costs you nothing but time to make that phone call and then have lunch on us. Black Book Bucks, CSN, and the Black Book. We also have a deal. SK Motors just came on. SK Motors is offering this Black Book deal. You come out. If you got car problems, they'll do a free inspection. They'll take a look at it. And they won't charge you. Many places you got to pay a fee just for them to look at you and tell you what's wrong. So they'll do the initial inspection. And if you decide, if you're a first-time user of S&K Motors and they just opened up, you'll get 10% off of your first visit. If you don't need work, you can get 15% off your oil change. Either way, it's a good deal, but you got to tell them the Black Book sent you. So shout out. And we're getting through two real time pain. They just joined the Black Book. S&K Motors. We've got a host of list of people who are joining the Black Book, and they're good quality businesses. The Write Up, they've been with us as a partner. We created the Black Book board. If you go on Mario's and other areas and you look up where it says Mario supports black-owned businesses, you will see the businesses that are on the Black Book that are premier. You'll see you'll see the candidates that are supporting a black agenda, so that you can be informed on both the business side and the political side. And last but not least, we created the Independent Black Voters Group. That was created on Facebook with the belief that we must be informed in voters. We must look at everybody and make everybody talk about our agendas. I truly believe if they talk about the black agenda, everybody in the United States will do much better. Because folks, I'm passionate about this. I just recently saw an article that says in the next decade or two, probably the next couple of decades, black folks as a whole will have nothing. They will own nothing in this community, in the United States. And that's a scary thought because it can be changed. But if you don't have a sense of urgency, it will never change. So we put out an offer. We're having the mixer, and I sent it out to 40 candidates. There are 22 slots. And one of the first persons who responded to me was John. And he responded the night I sent it out. We talked yesterday about his platform. I went on his website because not everybody can come on this show. I'm going to look at your website. I'm going to vet you. And if you basically seem like you're willing to listen, then we want to listen to you. We want you to listen and talk. So, John, give us about a quick couple of minutes about you, and then we're going to actually spend some time talking about the objectives for the independent black voters as far as the black agenda. So here we go, John.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for having me, Brian. It was outstanding talking to you yesterday and learning a little bit about what you do and the black agenda. First of all, I'm a high school principal. I'm always a teacher.
All right.
But been in the Clark County School District for 18 years. If you don't include myself as a student, it's probably over 30 years. Chaparral graduate, and right now I'm a very, very proud principal of Sierra Vista High School. But I got into this race back in January, well before a lot of the school security issues came into play. But I got into this because as I really looked at what is needed out there, we need a voice from education in Congress. We just don't have that right now. And when you look at the role of a high school principal, it's really evolved from when all of us were in school. It's gone from just kind of that building administrator to really a community leader, someone who builds partnerships with the small businesses and really works with our community. On any given day, we're dealing with Medicare issues, we're dealing with immigration issues, but we're also dealing with the current violence that's happening in our city and in our streets. And I'm just schools. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, my school is the most diverse ethnicity wise in the Clark County School District, and I was even surprised about that when I got the job 3 years ago. But I'm here to stand up for my kids, to stand up for this community, and really send our message to Washington that we're not going to take it anymore. You know, we have kids that are hurting, we have kids that are dying every day, and it doesn't matter the ethnicity, but primarily in our black communities. And it's about time somebody stands up for them. And what's good about me, Brian, is I'm not your typical professional politician. I'm not going to give you a lot of lip service. I'm not going to give you a lot of promises. I work in the nitty-gritty of it every single day, and I think it would be very, very positive for our city and our state to have a true educator, a career educator, go out there and work and get our message to Washington.
Great. So we're going to start asking the questions specifically for the Independent Black Voters Group in our agenda. And one of the things I want to stress to you, and I looked at your website, and I'm going to challenge you.
Yes, sir.
As I said, every candidate that is on the Democratic side is proudly sticking their chest out for DACA.
Correct.
They stick it out for immigration rights. They stick it out for women's rights. They stick it out for the LGBT rights, and I applaud them. But I put it this way: the right to life is probably the most important right in the world. There's the right to life. And we have an epidemic here. We have an epidemic where African-American men and women are being killed disproportionately in all levels. Some of it is in economic base. When you talk about black on black crime, I don't want to talk about that's an economic problem that can be resolved when we have a fair share agenda. But when you have people that are here to protect and serve, there we have a problem when disproportionately the amount of unarmed citizens that die at the hands of people who are there to protect and serve, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I challenge you is that when you look in here, as you talk about your policies and issues, is that this becomes as important as all the other ones. Because guess what? All the other rights, are great and important, but they get to live.
Sure.
And so the right to life, a lot of our issues, especially the ones down here of the national police reviews and something, we have to have people who are going to stand up and proudly talk about our issues as well as they talk about others. Would you agree here, folks?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, so we're going to go through this list. Some of them will be short answers. Some of them will be out because we got 15 minutes to go through them. Access to capital for black-owned businesses. We have to, if you look at what's going on in the black communities where you have high crime and you have high death, a lot of it is economic based. The communities, the people that live in the communities can't get access to create businesses, which creates opportunity. Do you support that? You have any quick ideas on what you would do in your position specifically for black people? Don't talk to me about minorities.
Absolutely, Brian. Two things that come to mind. First of all, it does go back to education. We need to make sure that our kids understand what it's like to go out there and run a business. We have to make sure that they have internships in our community. And we're working on that tremendously within the Clark County School District and primarily within my school. We also need to talk about the infrastructure of our town, and like you said, getting access to those businesses. We have two incredible barber schools, but yet we don't really have an idea of how to get our kids involved in that. So the access information to our kids is number one, but also physically, this town right now is a mess. Infrastructure-wise, and the bus system is very, very difficult. I-15 right now is a disaster. I'm hoping within a few years that's better. But again, it comes down to access knowledge-wise and access physically. And there's no better person that has their thumb on the pulse of this community than a high school principal. And that's where I feel that my role in getting kids access, getting kids knowledge is really the quick answer to making sure that they're ready to own small businesses at some point.
So what are you implementing in the school now?
Yes, sir.
That helps vocationally to teach people business? No, he said internships,
right.
But what programs do you have in the schools?
Right now, at my school, we started for the first time a Black Student Union, and that Black Student Union is incredible because not only does it work with our students cultural-wise and getting them to be a little bit more informed about their own culture and other cultures, but we have perfect tie-ins to the small businesses in our community. And so, like, I'll go back to the internship question. Before the Black Student Union, our students, and we invite all ethnicities to the Black Student Union, but primarily our Black students have never had access to the same internships that some of our white students and some of our other students have had. And so, bringing in those small business owners, bringing in doctors, lawyers, engineers, all walks of life into those meetings, and then bringing the students back with them into the community, it's been an amazing partnership, and that's one thing we've done. The other thing that we've done, and something that I would encourage as a congressman, is that making sure our schools all across the nation, but primarily in Nevada, reach out to our churches. We have a partnership.
I want to back you up because we want to keep these kind of short. Yeah. But the other thing, and we're going to talk offline, I talked about access to capital. Education is a key. But access to capital is not education. It is, we need plans that designate finances that go to black businesses in black communities that are starving. Gentrification without participation is what you're seeing in the historic West Side right now. Let me finish this. When you look down Martin Luther King, which has a historic name, they're building all of these facilities that we have no ownership. And so it's great to talk to me about education, but
Sure.
we'll talk off the line more about different policies that are going to allow people who look like me the opportunity to get low-cost financing and the ability to buy and own this property instead of it going to all investors and seeing what we are seeing in the historic West Side now. And that is the land when we own it was worthless. The land when they own it is priceless.
Can I just respond to that? And I think you're right, Brian. I think it does start with the federal government. I think it does need to trickle down from there. I think there does need to be a sponsored bill that actually provides equity so that all minorities, black
Trickle
people,
down. Trickle down.
the black communities have
minorities-
equal access to the funding, to the credit in order to start the businesses. I 100% agree.
And let me break it down why this is about the black agenda. The highest unemployment are black folks. The highest incarceration are black
And the
folks.
highest dropout
A lot of
rate.
minorities have done very well off of the backs of my ancestors. We are the ones who have driven the set-asides, but now every other ethnicity, the veterans, the disabled. So the little set-asides that were fought for by my forefathers are being eaten up to everybody but us.
Understood.
That's why I want to make it clear. We're here to talk about your commitment to black folks, not minorities.
Sure.
And anytime you talk about minorities, you're throwing me off or I'm going to correct you because this is not to come in and talk about minorities. It is talk about the black agenda. And I appreciate you coming in here.
Yeah.
Because,
Let's not take away from all the stuff that he just mentioned that he is personally doing in the school. You know, I'm an advocate for youth and kids, and I'm in the schools working with kids. And to have a black union and to be doing these internships, I know you talked about access and you wanted to get him on point, but I don't want us to discredit what he said about what he personally, as a principal, is doing in his school. Because I've been volunteering, working in the schools, and there's a lot of principals that even isn't doing half of what he just mentioned.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump because I want to support a black-owned banks. And this is one that I'm going to throw out a suggestion, and you can take it there and you can write it down. Let's face it. We have major banks that get all of the money from the government for the most part. But the government has to put plans that strengthen it. We're losing black-owned banks left and right. And the first people who will at least consider loaning money to us are black-owned banks. We've had scandals. Wells Fargo just recently got fined $2 million, a slap on the wrist, because they knowingly discriminated against
Bank
people
of
who look like
America.
me.
Yeah.
So we need somebody who's going into Congress and going to fight for strengthening black-owned banks and expanding their reach so that we have more access to capital.
Yeah, 100%. And we've all been a victim at one point or another, especially with the housing crisis. So going into Congress, I would 100% support that, Brian, and making sure that the big banks, the corruption that's going on, doesn't hurt our community and especially our black community. I 100% agree with you on that.
Okay.
And as blacks, we got to make sure we support those type of banks that are out there because we're not putting our money in and we're not trusting it. Why would we ask a white person to do it?
Well, absolutely
support
right.
us.
But right now we're talking about people who are going to be in Congress, and we're talking about the issues.
And exactly,
there.
and as your representative, that's what I would vow to do.
Okay, alternate funding for black-owned businesses. And I give you an example. Right now we have the SBA. Right now they've changed a lot of rules. SBA's companies that are huge qualify for small business loans. So it pretty much X's out the small businesses. We need to maybe relook at the SBA and come up with ways where there can be direct, and banks aren't, there's direct lending to people who live in their black businesses. If you live in that community and you're trying to start a Starbucks or you're starting to try on your own line, that they can get the access directly from the SBA, because the banks are going to look at the balance sheets and say, oh, you're a $100 million small business. I know I can make my money back with you. Oh, you're a $100,000 business trying to start up in a black community and the odds are you're going to make it. I don't want to give my money to them. So we've got to reevaluate the
Criteria.
whole alternate funding for black-owned businesses so that we can strengthen our communities ourselves. So give me your thoughts there.
Yeah, Brian, that would be at the very top of my agenda. I think we need to not only research and rewrite those criteria, but we have funding formula issues all over this state, and that's a big one. We have to also down on lower on your list is public schools, and it's the same thing there. The funding formulas for not only what you're talking about, but for education are completely out of whack and archaic. So that would be at the top of my agenda.
Okay. Great. Fair federal and local contracts targeted for black folks. I'm going to give you, here's my thought. Folks, this came to me this morning. It was an epiphany, and I said this. Everybody runs away from talking about reparations. How about some reparations for black folks? Because we've been here to say, you know what? X percentage, maybe it's 8%, 10% of all federal contracts go to real black-owned businesses. And the criteria for these real black-owned businesses would be their employment numbers too and their ownership. So it's not a shell game, but it's actually gives us the ability to compete with our own taxes.
And Brian, you know where that's coming from? That's coming from that good old boy network, and that needs to be crushed. And again, that's why we need candidates out there that are not from that regurgitated professional politician world. We need to really look at those candidates that are coming right from the urban markets, the small businesses, the educational settings, and we need to squash the good old boy network so that there really, really is fairness and equity across the board, so that everybody has a chance. And again,
I'm talking about black folks. So
absolutely,
everybody else is doing pretty well. So I'm going to come back. And I said this, reparations is the one that it seems like everybody runs away from when it comes to us. There's been reparations for the Jewish community, for the Holocaust. There's been reparations for everybody. So I'm going to say this, and I threw this in as reparations in the sense of just give us a percentage, a specific percentage of federal contracts, because right now we're less than 1%. If you do that and give it to black businesses, it is reparations. We've given over 200 years of slavery to build this thing, but when you look at it now, everybody else is doing pretty well. So let's look at some alternative reparations, like saying we're going to put set-asides specifically for black folks, not minorities.
And give them the access to the capital.
That will give us access to capital so that we can grow the economy.
It's not too much to ask because everyone in this country has gotten a hand up.
Sure.
It's not an
a hand out.
It's not an American dream without that hand up. Yep. Every group of people gets a hand up, but they want to somehow keep us from getting the hand up. And that's like
we're asking for a hand out. Like
we're asking for what everyone else gets. Justifiably, we're asking.
And I'm gonna look you in the eye and tell you that you would have a champion. You would have a champion for that with me.
Number 7, Brian.
Absolutely.
Number 7.
Okay, I'm going to do this one and we need to increase the minimum wage, absolutely, but in a weighted way. If you come across the board and you try to increase it across the board, Sam's Town, all these big ones, they can absorb it because we'll all be out of business.
Right.
So you got to look at something like the income, the compensation to their employees, but they need to be driven up. Actually, not from a minimum wage, but to a living wage, and be forced to be able. And that's part of 7 is a poverty plan. We need affordable housing, living wages. We need something like affordable zoning. And I look at like here. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest problems we have, 40% of our homeless, okay, I got 1 minute. 40% of our homeless are working. So we need someplace that's weighted. I'm going to tell you, we got 1 minute. I'll let you talk on that. Go ahead.
Just on the affordable housing. Yeah. You know what? The Democrats are definitely throwing out the fight for 15 like crazy. But one thing I worry about is, like you said, the small businesses, or especially some of the smaller black-owned businesses, that they're fighting back, saying, well, what about if we can't afford the $15? So I like what you have here about the weighted funding formula for that. So as you grow, maybe the law would have a provision for you. The law would say, yes, $15 is the minimum wage. However, you have a little time to get there.
Okay, folks. Again, John, I appreciate it. You're taking the tough questions, and that's what we need to be asking. When we have these candidates in, we need to be asking them about our issues and not basically thinking that we're offending them for saying, let's talk about us. And I appreciate you coming here, John, because like I said, not everybody wants to come and talk about our agenda.
I want to learn. I want to listen, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing you, and if and when elected, I want to make sure that you believe in me and that I'm going to do what I say. Too many times, we elect politicians that make promises and they don't come back, and they forget about these. So I'm here to tell you, look in your eyes and tell you that what I hear and what I listen and what I do is all the same.
Great. Now, we're going to go back, poverty plan, because I'm going to use the historic West Side, which is in the district. There's been a lot of growth.
Yeah.
A lot of growth here. There's a lot of people talk about this being the next Summerlin. But the big problem, the history of the historic West Side is very simple. Can you turn that
volume down.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and I like to throw this out. Historic West Side, a lot of growth is there. But I say this, gentrification without participation is one of the major problems we have in the black community right now. You look at Harlem, which is now no longer Black Harlem, because the folks who look like me can't afford. You look at what is happening on the historic West Side, and the same thing is happening because, unfortunately, the people who are working to build the historic West Side don't look like me. Right. I drive across there, and I see all these businesses, and I see no black workers there. And that's why I continue to talk about the need for us to talk about black participation, because we were forced to live here in the 50s. I wasn't here, but I know the history. We were forced to live here in the 50s. It was 100% African American. It's 20% now. There should be an equation that allows the black populace to rise with the tide so they can afford this property. There should not be a historic West Side where investors are holding on to the property until they can figure out how to get rid of us, because then it'll be valuable. Actually, there should be penalties. There should be affordable housing zones put in this area, and a percentage of them should be designated for black folks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually, as you were saying that, I was writing down the exact same thing. I would propose and I would support mandatory zoning, mandatory designation, and I will tell you this. One of the things that we've gone away from with our kids, and I know I bring it back to education a lot because I think that's the core, right? One of the things that we have to remember is we've pushed so many kids into college over the last few years, and we've pushed a lot of our black students into college as well. But college isn't necessarily for everyone. And one thing we've gone away from are the trades. And so I have already as a principal, but I would continue this as a congressman to make sure that our schools, no matter what part of town they're in, are going back to the career technical education and the trades, because that's probably why we don't see a lot of black citizens working out there building those buildings and owning those buildings and investing, because we've pushed them so far into college. And then here's the thing, we push them into college and then they don't come back to our community.
Mm-hmm. Or when I was just in Mississippi, it was a lot different. I was in Clarksdale area, Glendale, and you had kids going away to college. They got these wonderful scholarships, but they came back to no job, nothing in the community. Then they had nothing. So they went to school, all that to nothing. So we have to make sure that the trade schools are excellent, because that can help them really get a job. Just going to school and getting education,
but it's not
it's
just
important.
About jobs.
But owning their own businesses too. But if you have nothing to come back to because there's nothing in the community, then that's a problem.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not either or; it's both.
Sure. Right.
But here's the thing: like I say, and I'm tossing this out. On one hand, you see a need for the unions, but you see abuse by the unions.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we need from the officials that say they go to the unions and say, if you want us to support the unions, then you need to support increased diversity for black folks to be in the unions, because the truth of the matter is we're the last brought in for whatever stipulation. As a matter of fact, you almost have to go to prison to get an opportunity to go there, and it shouldn't be that way.
Sure.
So we have to create stronger partnerships with the unions of real inclusion. We have to make sure that they are just as supportive of us. And I'll give you a great example that bothers me. A lot of the candidates are told that printers, they can only go and get their printing done by a union shop.
Right.
Well, guess what? I know tons of black-owned businesses that are printers that are not unions. So you want my vote, but you've aced me out of the financial opportunities. Folks, we got to fix that. You cannot basically have our vote and not do things, because part of the political admin, this is a business. People take in money to buy shirts, to buy stuff. And one of the questions I'll ask you in the future is, how much money did you spend in the black community with black businesses as you do your campaign?
Yes, sir.
Because action speaks louder than words to me. And so I say that because that's another part we have to do. If you want the unions, and I believe that we need the unions more than ever, and I'm not big a union fan, but the same thing, they need us, and they need to make sure that there's a commitment that black folks are brought into the union at all levels, and black folks their businesses are supported at all levels by the union, and that they basically get a partnership that doesn't say, I'm going to put you out of business if you're not union, but you know what? I'm going to basically respect you and you respect me.
And if I can respond to that, you're 100% right. There's been pressure on me as well to make sure that all my printing is done from union printers. But what I've done is I've stood up to that and I said, you know what, my voters or my constituents, especially many of my constituents in North Las Vegas, they want to see me reaching out to the black businesses as well, the black printers. So I think they will appreciate the fact that I've actually done my printing through both small businesses, actually a black-owned business, as well as some of the union like A and B printing. So I don't know, I can't tell you that every Democrat or even any candidate is doing that, but I feel like there should be just as much appreciation from the people who support unions. And when it sounds kind of silly, but they want to see that little union bug, but not everybody cares about that. Some people actually want to see the printing that's done by small businesses. What I try to stay away from is the big because they don't necessarily need a guy like me anyway. And so I think there should be a blend, Brian, and so I'm glad you touched on that, because not everybody knows about that.
Exactly.
It's kind of a best kept secret, or the worst kept secret.
No, we know about it. And the bottom line is, we're trying to tell you our vote is not free. And if you're doing things that prohibit our ability to participate, your message to us subtly is, we want your vote for free. And it needs to go back to the Democratic Party, because understand, I am independent. That means that you have the ability to win my vote, but your actions speak louder than all. Don't come talk to me about Donald Trump. Talk to me about what you're going to do to help the black agenda succeed, because when it succeeds, everybody else succeeds. And I appreciate you taking these calls and taking our opinions, because you're listening more than you're talking.
And I just want to say, if we keep talking about get out there and vote for the right candidate, that we make sure that you get out and get registered so that you can vote. It's no time to play. Your vote is very, very important.
Right, and folks, I'm going to tell you two things. I'm going to go back and say, you can find more black businesses to support. If you're going to have fundraisers, if you have food, we got black restaurants that have phenomenal food on the Blackbook. As far as registration, you can actually go into our voter or political section, and you can check your vote, and you can sign up and register to vote right on the Blackbook app, www.theblackbook.directory. So, education. Obviously, you talked about education. I'm a product of public schools. I truly believe that we need to, one of the reasons we're wasting a lot of money is because instead of focusing on fixing the public schools, we should be within walking distance instead of busing everybody all over the place. We should focus on teaching instead of worrying on testing.
Sure.
We need to basically utilize the funds that we have more expeditiously instead of just asking for more funds and getting nothing in return.
Or spending thousands and thousands of dollars on surveys to get the answer that you already should have or know. I mean, we spend thousands of dollars on conducting surveys when we just need to be out there educating, like you're talking about.
Exactly. We have to understand. And here's the thing I'm a product of, and I believe this. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. The teachers there loved me. The teachers there would discipline me. The teachers there knew my mother. And that's a heck of a way to do. And the teachers wanted me to succeed. Some people have a problem because we're moving people all around. they're dealing with teachers, especially if you're a black kid, they don't really want them there. And so they find ways to suspend them. They find ways to get rid of them. They don't teach them. They don't teach the right information.
Sure.
Because you need to
Stick them in a corner and you want to forget about them.
I'll say something on that. One thing, the number one question when I hire a teacher is, and I usually have a pretty good gut instinct for this, is do you like kids? All kids. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've noticed, and I come from a very loud Italian family, mm-hmm. right? One thing I noticed is a lot of our white middle class teachers, they don't really get that culture, right? And so just like my culture, when you go over to my house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, you might think everybody hates each other because everyone's yelling and screaming, but then really that's how we show our love.
Absolutely.
And so I try to teach my teachers and my staff that when they walk in the cafeteria and they see a group of black students talking together and they're loud and boisterous, that doesn't mean that they're about to break into a fight. That's a culture, and it's the same culture as mine. And I think there's a cultural competency issue. When we hire teachers, I really like to hire teachers that have a little street cred, that have been in urban districts or even grown up in urban towns, because the kids want to see and learn from people who look and sound like them. And so when we go out to hire, we want to hire two things. One, people who really love kids, and two, people that look like my students. If I'm claiming that my school is diverse, I better have a diverse staff. And that's very, very key. And we've gone out and done that, and we found, and we're not just going to sacrifice quality for color, right? But we're going to look for people who are qualified that look like my students. And if it's between two people and one person is looking like my kids, that's who's going to get the job. So I think you'd be very proud, Brian, of my staff ratio makeup. And that matters because the kids are going to listen and trust better. And it kind of goes back to the BSU. The BSU has been critical because now I have a group where it's just not athletics, it's not just music, it's actually a club that reaches out to the community and works together. And now I have a place where my kids that are my black students actually feel at home. And it's important.
And can I say one more thing? And it's so important that you have a principal with your views and open mind, because I've been volunteering at school for 30-something years, and I had a principal, and as I mentioned to you early, got mad because I gave some kids some clothes. I bought them some clothes because they didn't have appropriate clothes. You can't go to school and actually be able to study when someone's teasing you about your clothing. So to have a principal that's looking at going beyond of just what a principal's duty is so critical right now for these kids in the school.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you about HBCUs. How much do you know about historically black colleges?
How much do I know? I'm not an expert, but we make sure that our College Career Center is making sure that our students have information about historically black colleges just as much as any colleges. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to make sure that our students, I think it's probably more important right now as a principal that my students know more, but as a congressman, I need to make sure that we're getting information out to our kids, and they have the same access as for any other colleges. So,
and let me break down a little history, because history will go is back in the 20s and 30s when black folks had no place for education. They built historically black colleges. They have been a pipeline for creating attorneys, doctors, businessmen, etc.
And a hope for kids.
One of the biggest concerns that we have in the independent black voters is you're seeing two things happening. The weakening of the HBCUs. One, some are going out of business. Others are being integrated into the overall curriculum.
Why is that, Brian?
College. There's a lot of reasons, and again, there's a lot of reasons to that. Obviously, the cost associated, but also even the support from the federal government.
Okay.
Because the federal government, obviously, it is very important that they do not let these historically black colleges either go out of business or be integrated. Because when they're integrated, they're just like any other school. A lot of the HBCUs have allowed black folks to come in, get their footing, get their legging, and then go out to be great people. And when you basically become the same thing as another school where you have different curriculum, and obviously too, some people have to adjust. Being in an environment of people that look like themselves gives them the ability to grow, learn, and go out and reach their potential. I am not a product of the HBCUs. I am a supporter of the HBCUs, and I believe that we have to have congressmen who are going to fight to strengthen the HBCUs and to keep them as they are, historically black colleges designed to give an opportunity for those who might not meet the criteria of the larger colleges to get in, to acclimate themselves, to learn and grow. Would you all agree with me?
Yeah.
It's the trick that, the larger white society is using of saying that it's integration. We desegregated integration now, and now because of that, we don't need these particular schools anymore. So they start to cut funding back, and they ask you, why are you separating yourself?
Okay.
That is the biggest trick being done.
Smoke and mirrors.
While you see that white folks took their kids from out of public school, put them into private schools. That's segregation. When they first started busing out, because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And the great idea that Teddy Kennedy had about desegregating the schools and using busing to have people meet up with each other. Well, the people who could pull their children out and put them into private or Catholic school. And then what I found when I got on the bus, when I went over, I just met myself. I just met myself on the west side.
Exactly.
And then instead of taking the white kids who have a problem, this is what this is about. The white people in this country have a problem with being around black people.
Okay,
Go
ahead.
The people who needed to be bussed were the people who had the problem, not the people who were just let's live, let's get along. This is what this is about. So when he's asking you about saving public schools, we know that the Voss, I guess that's her name,
that's what I was gonna say.
She's not for it. She's for private. So when you know that it's about an economy where it's 450,000 to be middle class top line. So that means it used to be 55,000 to 250,000. Now it's probably going to be 110,000 low middle class, right? So that means everyone else under that 110,000 is working poor.
Right.
So when you know that, and you know that they're putting the people who can put their kids in private school, this is setting up something by 2053 where black people will be disenfranchised, will be locked out of things because we have no wealth. So when he's asking you these questions, he's asking you because you are an educator. And it's good to talk about education, but we're some of the most educated people. Our women, in particular, are some of the most educated people in the United States right now, and there are no job opportunities because it is still racism and discrimination. So this is what we're talking about. This is what we need to hear from you and see if you have the ability to have empathy beyond sympathy.
Sure.
To be able to say, okay, let me look into my history of a people who may have been Sicilian, who may have been mistreated, and then apply that to this ongoing 400 and some years, 500 and some years of discrimination, eugenics, racism, bigotry, and trying to annihilate a group of people who just say, let's all just get along. Can we all just work together to build this country? That's what we've always said.
Sure.
So when he's asking you these questions, this is what he wants to know from you. Do you have empathy, and can you express empathy to the people?
So
are you committed to take that empathy into making legislation that is fair and equity and gives us a fair share? Thank you.
So if I could just say a couple of things. One, I would hope that you can see into me a little bit just being here that I'm willing to put a career that I've worked for and I've gone to a lot of schooling for, to put that on the line, to go to Washington to fight. I don't need to do this, right? I want to do this. My colleagues have kind of anointed me to say, John, we want you to be that guy to go and fight. I know in the bottom of my heart that my black students have one foot out the door. while my white students have 1 foot in the door. Okay, I know that. I see that every day. Okay, and we have to make sure that we're continuing to fight so that nobody has 1 foot out the door, that everyone has equal playing field. And it's a lot of years to make up. But going back to Betsy DeVos for a second, she needs to go. Okay, this is a woman who only understands private school. She's probably never stepped foot in a public school. I've personally invited her to my school, and that invitation was not responded to. And I know several of my colleagues have as well. She is a woman, and under the Trump agenda, they want vouchers. That would provide money to people who want to take their kids out of the public school system to put them into private schools. That would absolutely devastate public school. Absolutely. I came from public school. It sounds like all of us did. And I'm from Buffalo, New York. I went to some tough public schools. And I'll tell you right now, if this continues to go on, our public school system is going to get destroyed. And that's one of the reasons I stepped up to do this, because if we actually hand people money, listen, I'm already fighting to keep my kids. I'm getting poached by Bishop Gorman. I'm getting poached by Faith Lutheran. I'm getting poached by career technical academies that used to be for your more blue collar tradesman type kid, but they've become these elite academies. And that's not right. You go into those schools, they're not diverse. You got your Asian students, you got your white, and so at the end of the day, empathy, that's the core of me, and so I think that's why I'm doing this, to fight.
I got 2 questions, but I had something to come on. Patricia McKinley, 2 good questions. The first one is student loans, which is crippling the generation. And there's a 2-part on this. The student loans, obviously, the default on those, and how do we control that? Because it is the next big killer that's on its way. It is crippling not just the community, but the ability for folks, disproportionately us, to go out and own homes, to go out and do careers. And the second part of this is the HBCUs. Yes, one of the big problems. They set criteria on loans that was tied to to certain metrics that would determine whether you would be able to get certain loans.
Sure.
And obviously, if you are black and you come out and you're trying to get employment, you may have the same criteria, but it's harder for us to get employment.
And not only that,
let me finish.
Okay.
Let me please. So the issue. This is the second part of this is when you talked about HBCUs is they took a phenomenal amount of money away. This was in the Obama administration. They took away all these loans and grants that were the HBCUs were using to help to pay for a lot of their students. And now that's another crippler of the HBCUs, because the metrics were designed in a way that they fundamentally hurt the historically black business, universities, and are still hurting them today. So, I'm sorry about that. I'll go to you. I just wanted to finish that thought before I forget it.
Sure. Well, I'm speaking from example. I'm hundreds of $1,000s in debt from my education as well, and I was a very immature, irresponsible student, taking out loans that I shouldn't have. So I agree with you 100%. The first thing you see when you walk onto a college campus is some kids playing frisbee and giving out shirts and saying, "Hey, sign up for this, sign up for that."
Credit card companies.
The credit card companies in conjunction with the student loans, and they're giving this money freely to students who are irresponsible. So I think the first step is making sure that in our high schools we're actually providing financial responsibility classes for our students, which we're not doing it. We're sticking kids in trigonometry and algebra 2, and I'll be honest with you, some of my math teachers will say some of that stuff. It's important, but we really need to be talking about financial literature.
Let's go back to the question.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I asked.
No, go ahead.
The question is, we have the loan here. It's not about the people in the past.
Sure.
We have crushing loans that are out there that
you have to pay the minute you finish school.
Exactly.
As long as you
6 months,
finish,
usually 6 months.
Yep, you got to pay, but you're still looking for a job. You don't have $100,000 to pay in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah. And the bottom line is, it's crushing the economy. It's crushing the people out there, and so we need to look at a solution to the student loan issue for everybody.
Sure.
But again, like
We're
I
so
said,
full of kids that finished school, they went through, they've taken it seriously, they put all their heart, now they're out there looking for a job, they find a job, but it's not paying enough to pay that loan and survive, those are the people more so than the people who get in and quit.
So 2 solutions that I would say is, one, we need full year Pell Grant options to where, because a lot of us, I'm sure a lot of you have taken summer school classes that didn't, and I qualified for the Pell Grant when I went to school, but we didn't have it a full year. So I think full year Pell Grants where you can actually, and also raising the bar to say, okay, if your family makes this amount of income, you can still qualify for a Pell Grant. So making more access to the Black community and all students, but Black community as well, for a larger Pell Grant and a longer staying Pell Grant. And also I would say, if you pay your loans religiously for X amount of years, whether that's 5 or 10 years, then you do get them forgiven. I think if you can prove that you've worked steadily, that you've paid on time, and you've made good on your loans, I think there should be a grace period to where if you do that, then they're forgiven. I also think, and I hate to say this, but I also think that bankruptcy, and believe me, I'm not a proponent of trying to tell people to file bankruptcy, but I feel that we should make a federal program to where student loans are wrapped into bankruptcy. So if you do get to the point where you're just so inundated with debt and the student loans are hurting you and crushing you to that point where you can't even buy a home or raise a family,
or take care of yourself,
then they'd be forgiven under bankruptcy law.
And that's, again, another one that is important in our community. Because we've been in here, and I want to end this. We're going to have you back, obviously, if you decide to come in and talk with us. But the National Police Review, federal guidelines when unarmed people are shot or killed. And I used to say kill, but I've seen the video of living with being shot.
Yep.
And what is your belief on that? And tell us what you would do. But we need some type of a federal mandate that says if you do A, B, C, that you directly go to the federal prosecution, and even certain things that you can go to jail for just because you just didn't follow the guidelines.
Correct. So right now we have several cases that have gone to plea deals that are ridiculous. But more importantly, we have so many non-convictions of police officers that have brutally shot black men primarily, but also some black women and children
and other people.
But listen, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. It's breaking. Hey, listen, if it's breaking my heart, I know it's got to be breaking the heart of the Black community. And so I think it needs to be federally mandated that not only do those cases have to go to court, but there has to be a minimum sentence for those killers.
Absolutely.
And I call them killers.
Absolutely.
What do you think about them taking away the civil service classification from people who go to trial for shooting a black person?
100%. I mean, if we're losing our driver's license for DUIs, we should definitely be losing that ability to be a civil servant if you're involved in a case like that. 100%.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to talk some more on that because, again, I respect everybody. And thank you, folks on Facebook. Please let us know what you thought about this, because we're going to basically ask about the Black agenda, affordable healthcare strategy. Obviously, more than anything, it affects disproportionately African Americans, but it affects everybody. We need to focus on the root cause. Litigation and greed are one of the biggest problems. Healthcare should not be a profit center. Healthcare, you should not have CEOs of nonprofit hospitals or even profit making $10 million a year and then talking about we don't have enough money to take care. You shouldn't have insurance companies where their CEOs make $10 million plus a year, and yet they say we have to do structured healthcare. The problem is greed. The problem is litigation, where now we have people trolling to have out these miscellaneous litigation that's hurting us too.
I have a question. Lady wants to know if there's any black-owned banks and credit unions.
Not here in Vegas, but if they check the Blackbook, there are some that they can go to that are national. So not here in Vegas.
Okay, well, this is an older lady. She was looking for something here.
Not here in Vegas.
We don't have any in Vegas.
So government health care for all. We really need to look at Canada and say, I'm sorry, screw all these people who are basically getting rich off of the backs of the health of the United States.
So if I could just really quickly go back to the one issue with civil servants, I just wanted to make it clear that I'm a very, very big proponent of law enforcement and law enforcement professionals that are doing the right thing.
There you go.
But no, and I just want to say,
And
that
me with the law enforcement background, I support
and
doing the
only-
right thing.
There are some good police.
There are some wonderful police officers, but I just want to go back to clear that up. That this is all evidence based. If there's clear cut evidence and people like that are getting off and continuing to be civil servants, that's what we need to go after.
Absolutely.
But I want to make it clear for the record.
You want to make it clear that if they're prosecuted for it, they automatically lose their civil servant classification.
If there's evidence.
No, because the civil servant is what is the difference between their protection. So if they're automatically stripped of their civil servant's status when they go to trial, then it's pretty much clearer that it's more like it's a citizen.
Not a
did
policeman.
something to a citizen.
Correct, because now they're not protected.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. But like I said, I think we all can agree that we respect and we need our.
Let me go on record too as stating we believe that the majority of people that are there to protect and serve the vast. But we have to challenge the people that are in that position to hold their people to a higher standard.
Right.
Because if you have one bad apple,
I was just going to say
it turns around and spoils the
entire
whole
bunch.
basket. So we challenge folks, let's pull out that bad apple and let's hold them to the accountability, and then everything will take care of itself.
And that's really important that you look at the force as a whole, because I come from that law enforcement background. And I'll tell you, working in the prison system, we have one bad apple, the apple need to go. And I was one of the strongest advocates that if you're dirty, you got to go. And that's how they have to look at that statewide.
And then to just go to the affordable health care, I believe that Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, was probably one of the greatest pieces of legislation. At least it pushed us forward, probably in the last 50 to 60 years since for FDR. And so I do believe there's some holes in it, just like in anything. And so my first agenda when it comes to health care would be to fix those holes. Now you're talking about.
Now we got Trump care that's even worse.
Well, you're talking about going to more of a Medicare for all or a socialist.
Exactly. Because here's the thing: if all businesses, if there was a criteria and they were basically they couldn't use healthcare as a way to have higher profits for their CEOs.
Sure.
If it was taxed and it
cut
went
them
into
out.
that base, then they can't play the games.
Right.
You're only going to work 30 hours because I can get away from giving you any type of healthcare.
Right.
To you know what? It doesn't matter because I got to pay it anywhere.
So, Brian, I think that we're getting to that to get to that point, and it needs to happen sooner than later. But I also think all of us are intelligent people to know under this administration, that's going to be a very, very tough fight to go to right away. I think that's why we need to get a Democrat in office in 2020. That's imperative so that we can actually. I know you're independent, but I think that's where we need to head in order to get a Medicare for all in place. I'm talking about if I'm elected, I have to work through 2019, unfortunately. So in that time frame, that year, I think it's more realistic to fix what we have with the Affordable Care Act, and then we can move towards more of a Medicare for all. But let's be realistic. If you think you're going to go into Congress as a freshman congressman and all of a sudden wave a magic wand and you got Medicare for all in 2019, you're probably mistaken.
Yeah,
and
they
we
took
know
the
that.
idiot that's in place, and I'm going to say idiot, to take away from everybody where they were just starting to get affordable health care.
Yeah.
And now, you have families out there that's working 40-hour weeks or more that can't even medically take care of their family.
Yeah, John, because I want to respect the folks that are here, but great way. Thanks for sitting down and listening and talking.
Yeah.
Give us your information again, what you're running from. Give us your contact information.
Sure, yeah. I'm running for Congress, District 4. Again, that takes, it's a big area from Summerlin Parkway north all the way through North Las Vegas, east side of town, and then up into some of the rural areas. So I don't want to forget about my rural people out there. I'm currently a high school principal, Sierra Vista High School. You can reach me at www.johnanzaloneforcongress.com. I'm also That's my website. Also, my email is johnanzaloneforcongress@gmail. I'm also on Twitter at Nevada4, the number 4 Anzalone, and you can find me on Facebook, John Anzalone or John Anzalone for Congress. I want to give my cell phone out too, real quick. 702-285-5717. Hit me up on text, or give me a call anytime.
Okay, you would have the Bundys as your constituent. I
believe so, yeah.
Real quick. These are hardcore racists.
Yeah.
Basically.
There's no term.
How do you get the people who may be within that same area
Sure.
that may not believe as strongly as he believes? How do you get those people to move over to understanding that through the rise of black people, that their vote rises also, versus, they're taking our jobs. Just like they're saying, just like they said, they used the same game plan that they did with us over 30 years ago. They used it on the Mexicans now, saying, and the immigrants, or the so-called illegal aliens, that they're taking our jobs. How do you teach? Because primarily, all I care about is the black issue. How do we teach them? How do you get across to them? Because you have to go speak to them. Yeah. And your message is going to change slightly. Hopefully not too much, but it's going to change slightly. How do you get them to realize that all boats rise with the tide of the rising of black folks in this country?
You know what? I'm going to ask him, come on, because I want you to come on. Crazy D, we're going to have him come in and actually interview you, because we got about 2 minutes, and can you answer that? 2 minutes?
All I'll tell you is this. That's a tough question, but all I'll tell you is this: is that as an educator and as a principal, I don't get to ask my students what religion they're from, or what party they're with, or my teachers, or my parents, or my community. I get a fresh slate in front of me. So for 18 plus years now, I've had to collaborate and listen and work with every walk of life. And I'll tell you right now, there isn't a bone in my body that thinks that I can't collaborate and listen to anybody. And we may disagree, and we may not always come to a consensus, but you better be sure that I don't care about your racist beliefs or those things. We're going to work for the best of all the constituents, but primarily when we're talking in front of people who have those racial backgrounds, and let's just put it out there, and they're racist against the black community. I don't want to hear that noise. I want them to understand that, going back to what is best for the community and what is best for the constituents, and I won't even hear that noise. And I'll tell you right now, I don't need anybody's vote. I don't need anybody's vote bad enough, because again, I get to go back to being a high school principal. Is all I ever wanted to do. So I don't care enough about anybody's vote to where I'm going to stand for that at all.
Okay, great. Hey, folks, we went over for about a half an hour or a little bit more, but I thank you all who came on to listen to Blackbook Mondays as we research the candidates. Now, we've had a couple on. We had Rodney Smith, who's running also as a independent. We've had Thorne on, who's running for governor. We've had Tim Bedwell, who's running for sheriff. We've now had John Anzalone.
I need you to get that right.
John Anzalone, who's also running for Democrat for CD-4 and for Congress. We are inviting any of the candidates who are willing to sit here and be and discuss like John did about our agenda to come on to Blackbook Mondays. We are inviting you on May 4th to participate in our mega mixer at Raw Remedies, 203 East Colorado, because we will be informed voters. We will not, in the primaries, do anything other than give a plus or a minus, and whether we give them a thumbs up or thumbs down for the candidates, but we will not endorse any candidates who are running in their parties. We will just give them a positive or negative, but we will give that out via the Independent Black Voters Group and the Black Business Council.
And
one thing
I have to say.
But also, we have a lot of nonpartisan races that we will end up endorsing people. Tim Bedwell was on our show. He is running for sheriff. He gets the first endorsement from the independent black voters. He hasn't got it from the black business. He's got to come in, the Black Business Council. He got to come in and earn that vote. But we will give a list of who's running for district attorney, who's running for sheriff, who's running for the judges, who's running for the regents, because it is important that we now take the time to understand who is running, what is their agenda as it pertains to us, so that we can make a difference in the future for us, our kids, and our kids' kids. Thank you very much. The Black Book Mondays by the Blackbook and the Black Market.
Let me say this real quick before you go off, Brian. We have to applaud Brian Harris. We really do, because before him, people were saying urban. They were saying minority. We are black. It is about black issues, about black situations that we sit here every week and talk about how we can rise and raise above the plight that we're in. So we want to applaud Brian Harris, because for him, this wasn't happening here, and now it is.
Thank you, sir.
I applaud Brian Harris.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.